The 10 most scandalous and shocking assassination attempts on U.S. presidential candidates. The history of U.S. presidential elections is marked by fierce competition, intense rivalries, and sometimes life-threatening dangers. Assassination attempts on presidential candidates have not only shocked the nation but also influenced the political landscape. These attempts often highlight the extreme measures taken by those opposed to certain political figures and underscore the vulnerability of public officials. Here are 10 of the most scandalous and shocking assassination attempts on U.S. presidential candidates, detailing their impact on election outcomes and candidate support. Number 1. Theodore Roosevelt's near-fatal encounter in Milwaukee. On October 14, 1912, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Theodore Roosevelt, the former president and then Progressive Party candidate, experienced a near-fatal assassination attempt that would become a legendary part of his robust image. The assailant, John Flaming Schrank, a New York saloonkeeper with a documented mental instability, shot Roosevelt once in the chest with a .38 caliber revolver. Remarkably, the bullet's impact was significantly reduced by Roosevelt's steel eyeglass case and the 50-page speech folded over twice in his breast pocket, which he was set to deliver that day. Despite the severe injury, Roosevelt, demonstrating extraordinary determination, chose to proceed with his 90-minute speech, famously opening with, "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." This statement and his subsequent actions greatly enhanced his public persona as a resilient and almost superhuman figure in American politics. Although he lost the 1912 election to Woodrow Wilson, finishing second and ahead of the incumbent President William Howard Taft, this event solidified Theodore Roosevelt's enduring legacy as one of America's most formidable and courageous leaders. Number 2. George Wallace and the 1972 shooting in Maryland. The shooting of Governor George Wallace of Alabama on May 15, 1972, by Arthur Herman Bremer, dramatically altered the trajectory of his political career and the 1972 presidential race. Wallace, a known segregationist campaigning in Laurel, Maryland, faced this life-changing event while engaging with his supporters. Bremer, whose motivations were rooted more in a quest for notoriety than political ideology, inflicted severe injuries on Wallace, shooting him 5 times with a .38 caliber revolver, which led to permanent paralysis from the waist down. The attack garnered a wave of sympathy for Wallace across the nation, temporarily increasing his popularity. It also cast a spotlight on the intense political and social divisions within the country amid the civil rights movement. Despite the initial surge in support, Wallace's hopes for a successful presidential campaign dissolved due to his incapacitation. He remained a significant figure in Southern politics but never fully recovered politically or physically from the attack, symbolizing the era's violent polarization. Number 3. Franklin D. Roosevelt's brush with death in Miami. On February 15, 1933, in Miami, Florida, Franklin D. Roosevelt, then president-elect, narrowly escaped an assassination attempt by Giuseppe Zangara, an Italian immigrant disgruntled by his personal misfortunes and perceived injustices. Zangara fired several shots with a .32 caliber pistol during a public appearance, but rather than hitting Roosevelt, he fatally wounded Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak, who was also present. Roosevelt's composed and unflustered handling of the situation was widely praised and reinforced his reputation as a leader of great steadiness and poise, attributes that would define his presidency during the tumultuous years of the Great Depression and World War II. While the incident emphasized the era's political and economic strife, it did little to sway the overwhelming electoral support Roosevelt received. His leadership qualities, underscored by his reaction to this critical incident, played a significant role in his substantial victory and enduring popularity. Number 4. Ronald Reagan's 1981 assassination attempt. On March 30, 1981, Ronald Reagan, then the newly inaugurated President of the United States, faced a grave threat when John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate him outside the Washington Hilton Hotel. Hinckley, driven by a delusional obsession with actress Jodie Foster, aimed to gain her attention through this dramatic act. Firing 6 shots with a Rohm RG-14.22 caliber revolver, Hinckley struck Reagan with a bullet that ricocheted off the presidential limousine and hit Reagan under his left arm, puncturing a lung and causing serious internal bleeding. Despite the severity of his injuries, Reagan maintained his characteristic humor and resilience. En route to the hospital, he famously quipped to his wife, "Nancy, honey, I forgot to duck," and to the surgeons, "I hope you are all Republicans." His swift recovery and return to public duty significantly boosted his public image and garnered widespread sympathy and support, contributing to his landslide re-election in 1984. The incident also precipitated major changes in Secret Service procedures and presidential protection protocols. Number 5. Harry S. Truman and the 1950 Blair House attack. On November 1, 1950, two Puerto Rican nationalists, Oscar Collazo and Gracilio Torrezola, launched an attack on Blair House in Washington, D.C., where President Harry S. Truman was temporarily residing due to White House renovations. Their aim was to assassinate Truman and draw international attention to the Puerto Rican independence movement. The attack resulted in a fierce shootout. Torrezola was killed, and Collazo was seriously wounded and subsequently captured. Truman, who was taking a nap during the incident, was unharmed and later expressed his stoic demeanor about the event. His handling of the situation and his decision to continue residing at Blair House during renovations showcased his resolve and unflappable leadership. The attack highlighted the intense emotions surrounding colonial and independence issues but had limited impact on Truman's overall political status. Number 6. The assassination of President James A. Garfield. President James A. Garfield was shot by Charles J. Gutierrez at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C., on July 2, 1881, just months into his presidency. Gutierrez, a mentally unstable failed lawyer and preacher, was motivated by a perceived personal slight after being denied a consular post, epitomizing the dangers of the then prevalent patronage system in U.S. government appointments. Garfield survived the initial attack but suffered greatly due to infection and poor medical practices, leading to his death on September 19, 1881. His tragic death stirred public and political awareness about the need for reform. The Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act was passed in 1883, partly in response to his assassination. This act marked a significant shift towards merit-based government appointments, aiming to curb the corruption and cronyism that had characterized the patronage system, reshaping American political and administrative landscapes profoundly. Number 7. The assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. On the night of June 5, 1968, at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California, Robert F. Kennedy, a U.S. Senator and presidential candidate, was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian. The assassination occurred shortly after Kennedy had delivered his victory speech upon winning the California Democratic primary. Sirhan, who confessed to the crime, cited Kennedy's pro-Israeli views as his motive, reflecting the intense geopolitical tensions of the time. Kennedy's death plunged the Democratic Party into chaos and grief, dramatically altering the 1968 presidential race. His assassination, coming just 5 years after his brother President John F. Kennedy's death, underscored the volatile and violent nature of American politics during the 1960s. The event left an indelible mark on the national psyche, contributing indirectly to the election of Richard Nixon, as the Democratic Party struggled to regroup and unify behind a single candidate. Number 8. Huey Long's assassination, the Kingfish Plot. Huey Long, the charismatic and controversial senator from Louisiana, was shot on September 8, 1935, by Dr. Carl Weiss, a local Baton Rouge physician, in the Louisiana State Capitol building. Long, nicknamed the Kingfish, was a populist who had implemented a range of progressive reforms and infrastructure projects in Louisiana and was seen as a potential challenger to President Franklin D. Roosevelt in the 1936 election. Weiss, whose motives remain partly speculative, was immediately killed by Long's bodyguards following the shooting. Long succumbed to his injuries 2 days later, on September 10, 1935. His death removed a significant political figure who could have split the Democratic vote in the upcoming presidential election, thus clearing a path for Roosevelt's re-election. Long's legacy continued to influence Louisiana politics for decades, and his assassination highlighted the extreme political passions of the era. Number 9. Andrew Jackson's duel with Charles Dickinson. One of the most famous duels involving Andrew Jackson occurred on May 30, 1806, against Charles Dickinson, a lawyer and excellent marksman who had insulted Jackson's wife and accused him of reneging on a horse race bet. The duel, held in Logan, Kentucky, was marked by strict adherence to the Code Duello, a set of rules for dueling. Despite being severely wounded in the chest, Jackson stood his ground and fatally shot Dickinson, demonstrating his notorious toughness and fearlessness. The lead bullet, which remained lodged near his heart, was a constant reminder of his brush with death but did not deter his political ambitions. Jackson's reputation as a duelist and military hero cemented his image as a rugged individualist, contributing to his electoral victory in 1828 and his enduring legacy as a populist president. Number 10. John F. Kennedy and Richard Pavlik's plot. Before his presidency, John F. Kennedy was the target of a planned assassination by Richard Paul Pavlik, a 73-year-old former postal worker. The plot unfolded on December 11, 1960, in Palm Beach, Florida, when Pavlik intended to crash his dynamite-laden car into Kennedy's vehicle. However, upon seeing Kennedy with his wife and daughter, Pavlik aborted the mission at the last moment, unwilling to harm Kennedy's family. Pavlik was arrested on December 15, 1960, after being stopped by the police due to a tip-off from the Secret Service, who had been alerted by his suspicious activities and threats against Kennedy. This incident, largely overshadowed later by Kennedy's assassination in 1963, highlighted the ongoing security challenges and the presence of severe threats faced by political figures, reflecting the broader vulnerabilities of public figures to acts of violence.